Okay, good morning. Welcome to Math for Kids number 12. Okay, we're going to do two problems from the Olympiad book this morning, and hopefully they're going to be pretty fun. Okay, so here's the first one. It's a real simple question. How many square feet are in 1 square yard? So,
I know how many feet are in 1 yard.
Okay, so there's two things we have to know to answer this question. How many feet are in a yard, and what is a square foot? I guess we have to know three things. How many feet are in a yard, what is a square foot, and what is a square yard? Okay, so how many feet are in a yard?
3 feet.
3 feet. There are 3 feet in 1 yard. Okay, so now would you draw for me what a square foot looks like? Do you know, actually, before you draw, do you know what a square foot is?
Not really.
Not really, okay, good. I'm glad we're talking about this then, because this is one of the things in the problem. A square foot just means
A foot times a foot?
a square that's 1 foot by 1 foot. That's what a square foot means.
Well,
okay, so if we have something that's about 1 foot long, well, you know what, a piece of paper is almost 1 foot long. It's 11 inches. How many inches are in a foot?
12.
Okay, so this is 11 inches long. So if I drew a little bit longer than a piece of paper, say about like that, and then I drew a little bit longer than a piece of paper, about like that, that's about a square foot. Okay? That's pretty close to a square foot.
Yeah.
Where did I put the eraser?
Would you?
I don't know. Well, anyways, we'll use my other picture that I just drew while I'm looking for the eraser as a square yard. What do you think a square yard is?
Well, I think it's 3 feet by 3 feet.
Okay, so why don't you write that in? 3 feet by 3 feet. So we have, the question is, how many square feet are in 1 square yard? So the question is, how many of these little squares can we fit into this big square? So that's a question. It's an interesting question to try to think about.
Say little squares like about that.
Well, they're not about something. They're exactly something. What are they? Exactly.
They're 1 foot.
Huh?
Well, it takes 3 of them. 3 of the little squares to go a whole row.
Okay, so why don't you draw all 3 of those in? Okay, it takes 3 to go 1 whole row. Okay.
And then there's 9.
There's 9, so that's...
Tic-tac-toe board.
Tic-tac, or a checkmate symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Remember our checkmate problem from the other day?
Yeah, that's funny.
That was funny. Okay, so how many square feet are in 1 square yard?
9.
And how did we figure that out?
Well, first we did. This is a square. What?
We had to know what a square foot was. Well, we knew that there were 3 feet in a yard.
And then this is a square yard.
And that's a square yard. Okay. So you want a quick a secret challenge problem?
Yeah.
How many square feet are there in a square mile? I wonder. In 1. Okay. Do you know how many feet are in a mile?
It's 1,500 and something.
No. 5,280.
Okay.
So we would draw a square that was 5,280 and 5,280. And then if you drew your little grid, how many 1 by 1 squares would fit up this way?
Probably 5,280.
Yeah, and how many would fit this way?
5,280.
So how many would fill the whole square? Remember, when we had this, we had 3 high and 3 across, and how many squares were there in the whole thing?
9.
So if it's 5,280
times 5,280.
5,280 times 5,280. You know what that is?
Well, it's a perfect square.
This is a perfect square. That's true. We don't have to figure that out right now, but we could figure that out later if we wanted. But you know what? It's a big number.
very big number.
Actually, do you know what 1,000 times 1,000 is?
1,000 times 1,000 is 100. Is 10,000.
No, 100 times 100 is 10,000. 1,000 times 1,000 is 1,000,000. So 5,000 times 5,000 is 25 million. So this number, there's more than 25 million square feet in a square mile.
Whoa!
Whoa. It's really big. Okay, you ready for the next problem?
Yep.
Okay, here's the next question. That's based on a question in the Olympiad book. What is 1 over 1 plus 2 plus 1 over 3 plus 1 over 4?
Whoa.
Whoa. This is called a continued fraction. So this is more complicated than a regular fraction. And I was going to actually, remember those geometry lectures I did? Called Geometry Project? I was actually going to do some lectures about continued fractions because they're really neat. But I decided not to.
Aww.
So, but that's alright. But here's the question. So how are we going to think about this? You've never seen anything like this in your whole life, have you? I never saw anything like this until I was in high school. So it's pretty neat, though. So the way you solve continued fractions, you have to simplify them. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. Okay? So the first thing we have to figure out is what is 3 plus 1/4?
Is that 3/4?
Well, let's say I have 3 pies. And then I have 1/4 of a pie. So when I add all those together, is that equal to 3/4 of a pie?
No.
It's much more.
That's 3 1/4.
Right, so how many fourths do I have?
4. 13.
Right, so 3 plus 1/4. Remember, when you add fractions, you have to get a common denominator. In this case, the common denominator is 4, because 3 is really 3 over 1. So you multiply this by 4 over 4, and this is 12 fourths plus 1/4, which is 13 fourths. Okay?
Yep.
All right, now I really need the eraser. Okay? Luckily, the problem I made is harder than the one that's in the book. So this is 13 fourths. Okay, now we have talked about this part. Now we have to simplify. What is 1 over 13 fourths? Do you remember what happens when you take 1 divided by a fraction?
You just flip the fraction around.
Okay, so what is 1 divided by 13?
It's 4 over 13.
4 over 13.
4/13.
Okay, so now we can change this. 2 plus 1 over 13 fourths is the same as 2 plus 4/13.
I have to do 1 plus 1 over 2 plus 4.
Okay, so the next thing we have to do is what's here on what's left on the bottom here. So 2 plus 4 over 13. Now, do you know how to do 2 plus 4 over 13? I just showed you.
Yeah.
Okay,
2 is really like 2 over 1.
Right. So what do I do to the 2?
We multiply this one by 13 over 13.
Okay, so this is the same as what's 13 times 2?
Is 26.
26 over 13 plus 4 over 13.
Which is 30 over 13.
30 over 13. I have to sneeze. Ah!
Beep.
30 over 13. Okay? So good. So this is 1 plus 1 over 30 over 13. Okay? So the question now is what is 1 over 30 over 13?
This is 13 30ths.
13 30ths. Okay, and so now we're just left with what is 1 plus 13 over 30? Okay.
Well,
see if you can figure that out.
So I'm going to write it down here.
Okay, you can write it however you want. Oh, they write it a little... Yeah, that's fine. That's on the
So 1 is really 1 over 1. We get the common denominator by multiplying this one by 30 over 30. And so we get 30 30ths.
30 30ths.
And plus 13 over 30.
Okay, and then write your answer over here. What is...
43 over 30.
43 over 30. Okay, very good. So, we started with 1 plus 1 over 2 plus 1 over 3 plus 1/4. And that whole thing we found out was equal to 43 over 30.
Wow!
Wow, isn't that neat?
That's so neat.
Yeah, and that's called a continued fraction. You know why they call it a continued fraction?
Because there's so many fractions.
Yeah, it just keeps continuing. You even have fractions that continued fractions that continue forever. Isn't that neat?
Whoa!
Yeah, and they're really, really neat to study. But we're going to have to wait till you're a little bit older to study those. Okay, great job today, sweetie. If you get confused on the homework problems, by the way, are Olympiad 5, number 2, and number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Olympiad 5, number 2, and number 3. If you get confused on the homework problems, it'd be a good idea to watch this video.